Good morning, and I hope you are well. My name is Christelle from Klerk, Independent Technical Analyst. The first one on our list this morning is the BHP Group, also known as Bulletin. The share is extremely oversold at the moment. There is a beautiful positive divergence with the blue line, the K percentage line, breaking upwards through the orange line, confirming the probability for a bounce to higher levels is more likely. There was strong support found on a line graph at the closing price of R455.91. The next strong resistance on Bulletin that has to be overcome is waiting at R488.47. That will, on a line graph, also show the first sign of strength, confirming that there is enough buying power to hopefully take this share back to the 40-week moving average. However, if you have a look, there is still and I'm going to draw that for you, ugly left shoulder, head, and a right shoulder, which can take this share back to around 397 Rand should the full formation play out. And we know that nothing drops or rises in one line. It pulls back and bounces again. So we might see a little bit of a bounce and then more downside, depending on how strong the buying or the selling is. Now, if we look at the candles, we can get a clearer indication that the buying power last week was strong. This is an example of a beautiful dragonfly candle with a long tail at the bottom, implying that even though low, running at 446 Rand, there was enough buyers to lift the share price all the way up to close at 469.61. Now, the confirmation of the dragonfly candle will only be in the following candle, which should be a bullish type of candle. So these are all weekly graphs. In other words, the candle will only be completely finished by Friday's close. So by Friday's close, if this candle, following candle, is also a bullish candle, we can assume that the optimism is confirmed and one can start to accumulate the following Monday. Obviously, a strong support is that low 446 Rand, and below that level, we can assume again that the momentum to the bottom can escalate. My 40-week moving average, waiting at 537 Rand 38, is the line in the sand. That tells us whether the sentiment, the long-term sentiment towards the share is positive or negative. At the moment, it is negative since the share is trading below this 40-week moving average. The next one on our list is Sun International. Ticker on our exchange SUI. I mean, this share had a massive lamp pole formation to the top. Massive rally. Yes, because of that, the share is overbought. That means that elastic band is stretched to a side. That means that the saturation level of the buyers is visible. And that means that the selling pressure might start to come in as investors start to take profit. The overbought indicator on the stochastic means the probability for downside is there. And that probability is even increases even when that blue line, that K percentage line, breaks downwards through the orange line. That's when we refer to it as a negative divergence in overbought territory. That increases the likelihood of the probability that there is a pullback in the near future. However, we combine that with the candles to tell us what the informed capital think, because the candles is nothing other than a graphical representation of the highs, the lows, the opening and closing prices. But that graphical interpretation of the picture thereof shows us what the buyers and the sellers think of the share, right? Because we can see that they push the share price higher, that they sell it off, or weren't they sure what to do with a doji type of candle. Now, last week's candle is a clear, massive, bullish belt line candle. I mean, it opened up at the close of the preceding week and even went through the preceding week's high back to a brand new record high. This week, we are seeing a harami candle. But these are weekly graphs, so this candle will only be finished by Friday's close. The harami candle appears in the real body of the preceding candle. It can appear on the top or at the bottom. It's seen as a pregnant candle, which means uncertainty, because it tells us that the buyers were not strong enough to take and change that previous resistance, that high at 46.91. They weren't strong enough to change that into a support. But the sellers were also not strong enough and were also not that keen to change this support into a resistance. So a little bit of a wait and see attitude. Now, if you've got Sun International and you're happy with this massive rally that you've seen, this candle Aramaic is implying maybe it's time to take some profit. But we can only confirm that decision once Friday's close is finished, or you can maybe preempt it a little bit and say, listen, I'm happy with my 15-16% profit, whatever the case might be. But this candle is telling me that the sellers are also, other sellers are also considering taking profit. Maybe I should do that. You don't have to take your whole profit all the time, the whole amount. You can phase it out should you want to. But the strong resistance, assuming that needs to be overcome, is waiting at 46.91, and above that level, we can assume again that the momentum to the top will continue. And below this low, the support, they're waiting at 43.57. Below that level, we can assume then again that the momentum to the bottom can escalate. The next one on our list is African Rainbow Minerals. Ticker on our exchange ARI. One of the commodities as well that completely saw a massive sell-off. It is oversold at the moment. That stochastic is trading below 820. But we are seeing a beautiful positive divergence here, where that K percentage line has broken upwards through the orange line, which means that the probability for a bounce to higher levels is there. We can see that also in the candles, right? Last week's candle was a beautiful example of a bullish engulfing candle. This week's candle is not finished yet, but is hinting at the moment as it is a bullish, a belt line candle. So what we also can see is, and I know I'm preempting it, and it might not be the case at all, but there is a left shoulder and there is a right shoulder. And maybe this share might just bounce a little bit, we don't know how high, and pull back. So it might hopefully go as high as overbought territory, or it might not. We don't know that. But this type of formation is always a little bit of a warning. So this warning of a possible head and shoulder in the making, the warning of this formation will only be completely wiped off the table when the high of this left shoulder changes into a support. In other words, the share starts to trade above it. That tells us then, listen, there's enough buyers there and that the momentum to the top can continue. And that is waiting at 203 Rand. The strong support on this neckline of this possible head and shoulder formation is, I would say, the lows of these two candles, which was and can be seen as tweezer bottoms, right? Two consecutive candles where support was found at exactly or very close to exactly the same level. That is seen as a tweezer bottom in oversold territory after a pullback, and that is positive. All right, so that is waiting at 152 Rand 63. Below that level, we can assume that the momentum to the bottom can continue again, but above last week's high, which is waiting at 173.31, we can expect a little bit of a bounce. The 40-week moving average is always a strong resistance. It's a strong indication as well to see, are the buyers strong enough? Is there enough buying power to lift it through that 40-week? And that is waiting at 194 Rand 72. Above that level, the long-term sentiment towards the share will change to positive. And we can see here, if we go back into history, for weeks, the buyers were not strong enough to change that 40-week into a support. They just weren't. But once I would say their muscles got bullied in the week of the 8th of April, they shot through that 40-week moving average, and there wasn't stop for them for weeks again. So the beautiful rally to the top was confirmed once that 40-week changed into a support. So now the big test is, can it do it again? Can it change that 40-week moving average into a support and keep it one? We don't know. Only time will tell. But use those strong support and resistance levels to make decisions or to around increasing position size, taking profit, or getting in the first place. Next one on our list is Momentum. Momentum Metropolitan. Momentum Group. Beautiful rally to the top. The 40-week moving average changed into a support and was kept a support since the week of the 10th of June 2024. My stochastic, however, is now in overbought territory. That does not mean the share has to pull back, right? It means there's a likelihood or a probability that it might, especially when there is a negative divergence in this case, which took place in the week of the 2nd of September. But we can see, if I zoom this out, that the blue line is already looking as if it wants to turn around again for some upside. That means the share might remain overbought and continue to rise for higher levels. Now, at this stage, we can see that since the week of the 26th of August, the share has stopped making new highs, right? The high 28 Rand 32, 28 Rand 40, a little bit lower the week after that, 28.13, and this week at 28.13. So when a share gives a massive rally like it has and stop to make new highs, it tells us that the buyers or the market that is looking at buying shares are saying, listen, we're not sure whether we want to continue to buy the share at this level. So what we might see is those who bought at these levels can see that the share is losing steam and then would want to take some profit, and that will obviously then spark some downside. Now this candle on the 2nd of September tells us a little bit of indecision, right? There's a long tail at the bottom and a fairly long tail at the top. It tells us that the fight between the buyers and the sellers were visible, and it's a matter of who's the strongest. Now, above that high again, 28.40, we can assume that the momentum to the top can continue, and below the low of that support, and that is waiting at 26 Rand, we can have confirmation to say this will be the first sign of weakness. We are trading above the 40-week moving average at the moment. That is waiting at 22.72 Rand. Only below this level will the long-term sentiment towards the share change to negative again. The next currency pair that investors wanted us to look at is the Rand against the British pound. Now, at the moment, we are trading below the 40-week moving average. That tells us that we are expecting a stronger Rand against the pound, right? A head and shoulder formation. Some might even call this a double top. Why? Because this resistance and the second resistance here are almost at the same level. So once this neckline starts to change into a resistance, the double top formation will be confirmed. And that is waiting there at 22 Rand 66. Below that level, this double top will be confirmed, implying that we can see a stronger Rand against the British pound. Only when the 40-week moving average starts to change into a support again, so when the currency pair starts to trade above 23.55, can we say we expect a weaker Rand against the pound. And then obviously that strong resistance there around 24.53. Above that level, the warning of the double top will be off the table, and we can say, listen, the weakness will continue. The stochastic is in mid-zone, not an ideal place to take any position, so be careful to maybe be too keen to sell or to buy at this stage. But the fact that I've got these shadows for weeks now, it touches the 40-week moving average, kisses it goodbye and retraces from it, tells us that the investors prefer a stronger Rand at the moment. And the fact that my 40-week moving average remains a resistance tells me for the longer term view, a 3 months plus view on the 40-week moving average, and the suggestion is a stronger Rand against the British pound. Don't forget to send through your requests via Twitter or email. Have a fantastic week. Take care.